I watch the grass in a field hold nothing back. It has no room out behind it. It keeps nothing set aside for a harder season. Have you ever stood near something like that and felt an unease you could not explain? It holds no green part of itself folded away in case the year turns cruel. As you hear me, look at what you are keeping in reserve. I am not speaking about grain. I am not speaking about anything you could put in a room with a door on it. I mean you. There is a part of you that never goes all the way out. You know the one. You have never given it a name. You would not be able to point at it if someone asked. But it is there, and it is full, and you have been feeding it a long while now. Watch how it works. You start a sentence. You get 4 words into it. Then something steps in, very quietly, and hands over a smaller version instead. Nobody in the room notices the trade. The smaller version is true. It is simply not the whole of what you meant. You pray, and you ask for less than you actually want, not out of humility. You decided in advance which disappointment you could survive, and you shaped the asking to fit it. Something good happens and you keep the gladness at half volume. You have learned that a thing held loosely falls a shorter distance. You love someone. You give 9 parts of it. The 10th stays in your own hands, where nothing can happen to it. That 10th is what I have come to talk about. You work. You have always worked. That was never the trouble between us. I see you get up and carry a full day and set it down and get up and carry another one. I see the days nobody thanked you for. I see the times you had nothing left and went anyway. Look closer at the field with me. The wildflower out there is not idle. It is working the whole time. It is pulling water up through a stem thinner than a thread. It is turning its face through an entire arc of light. It is doing, all day, without pause, the only thing it was made to do. So what makes you different from it is not effort. What makes you different is the room out back. You have a second work. It runs underneath the first one, and it never clocks out. The first work is the living. The second work is the keeping of a portion back from the living in case the living goes badly. And the second one is what is eating you. You are not tired from what you have done. You are tired from what you have withheld while doing it. Those are different tired. One of them sleeps. Think about how much of you is in that back room right now. Not wasted, stored. There is honesty in there you were saving for a better moment. There is a version of a conversation you have been carrying so long it has gone stiff. There is hope in there you decided not to walk around with in daylight, because hope carried in the open can be seen, and a thing that can be seen can be taken. You did not do this because you are cold. You did it because you gave the whole of something once, and it did not come back. And you made a quiet decision afterward that you have not opened since. Let me slow down there because you move past it too fast. And it is the hinge everything else turns on. You gave everything once in a single motion. Not the careful version, not the 9 parts. All of it handed over at one time. Before you had learned there was any other way to hand something over. You do not remember deciding to do it that way. That is what makes it early. You were still someone who assumed a full thing given would be met with a full thing returned. That is simply how giving works. Before anyone teaches you otherwise, then it did not come back. I'm not going to name what it was, you already know. Naming it for you would only give you a chance to argue with the wrong detail instead of the true one. It might have been trust, handed to someone who used it as a map to where you were softest. It might have been a want, said out loud. It landed on a person who was not able to carry it, and they set it down somewhere careless. It might have been a whole version of yourself, offered to a room. The room simply did not know what to do with it. Whatever it was, you watched it. It never returned. You watched long enough to stop expecting it. Here is the part you skipped past. Stand in it with me a while longer than is comfortable. There was a moment, small and unmarked, when you decided. You did not announce it. Nobody was in the room to witness it. It did not feel like a vow. Vows are loud. This was almost silent, more like a hand closing than a decision being spoken. You simply noticed it. Underneath the hurt, a second and smaller thought arrived right behind it. Not that again. 4 words. That is the whole of it. That is where that back room began. You sealed the door without a key in your hand. In a moment so quiet, you could not tell me the day if I asked you. Watch what that moment actually held. It was not cowardice. It was not weakness. I'm not going to let you call it either one. It was reasoning done by someone in pain. Pain reasons fast and badly. It went like this. If giving the whole of a thing costs this much when it fails, giving less will cost less when it fails again. That is not foolish. A person who has been burned reaches for the nearest cover. Reaching for cover is not a flaw. It is what a body does. The trouble was never the reasoning. The trouble is that the reasoning was never revisited. You made it once. In a single afternoon, or a single conversation, or a single silence after a door closed. Then you filed it under wisdom. You never opened it again. Not the next year. Not the year after. You have been running your whole life since on a decision made by someone younger, someone still hurting, someone who did not have the room that day to consider any option besides never again. That person was right to protect themselves. I am not undoing that. I watched what happened to you. I did not think less of you for closing your hand. But that person could not have known one thing. Nobody can know it from inside the hurt. They could not have known the decision would still be running the whole show. Not this long. Not after the wound that wrote it had already closed over. You keep renewing a contract with someone who is not you anymore. The one who wrote the rule was frightened, new to this kind of pain. They had no other information to work from. You are neither of those things now. You have survived the very thing they were so afraid of surviving. And you have gone on, obeying their instructions anyway. As if the fear that wrote them were still the newest information you had, instead of the oldest. Somewhere in you, a part is still that age, still standing at that door, still repeating the 4 words, like a post held at a gate long after the war it was guarding against has ended. This is not about blaming them for the wall. I'm asking you to notice something. You are the one still holding it up. Never again all of it. Always a little kept. It felt like wisdom. It has behaved like a slow leak. Before these words are finished, I'm going to ask you to open that room and look at what is actually in there. Not to shame you. There is no shame in this, and there never was. I want you to see what happened to the things you put in it, because you have not looked in there for years, and you have never once asked, what happens to something while it waits? You have assumed it is all still sitting there exactly as you left it. And the field outside has no room like that at all, and nobody has ever stopped to ask how it manages. Let me ask you something plainly, the way it would be asked if we were sitting across from each other with nothing else to do. Why do you keep a portion back? Do not answer quickly. I already know how the quick answer sounds. I have heard you give it to yourself in the car, with the engine off. You would say you are being sensible. You would say somebody has to be. You would say, it is not fear. It is simply how you were built, and you have been this way since you were small, and it has done you no harm. Every word of that is true. None of it is the answer. So I would wait. I am patient in a way you have never learned to be. I have waited on you through entire seasons where you did not once look up. And somewhere inside the waiting, you would stop defending it. You would say the real thing. It would come out shorter than everything that came before it. You would say, if I give all of it and it is not enough, I have nothing left to stand up with. There. That is the sentence. I hear more truth in that one line than in the last 4 prayers you brought me in your careful voice. Do you know what I did not hear in it? I did not hear a selfish person. That is what you have been afraid it sounds like, which is why you have kept it behind your teeth. What I heard was someone who was emptied out once and has no memory of anyone showing up to fill them again. That is a whole different thing, and it deserves a different answer than the one you have been giving yourself. Hear me carefully now, because this is where most of what is said about people like you goes wrong. This is not about whether you are good enough. You and I settled that on a bad night some while ago, and you have not seriously argued with me about it since. You are not holding back to make yourself worthy of anything. You're not trying to look better than you are. You're holding back because you have watched what an empty person looks like from the inside, and you swore you would never be caught that way twice. That is not pride. What you built is a survival plan. And it works. That is the part nobody tells you. It genuinely works. You have not been flattened since. You have been disappointed 100 times, and every one of them landed on the 9 parts and never on the 10th. The plan has protected exactly what it was built to protect. I will not stand here and tell you it failed. I'm going to ask you what it cost, because there is a second question, and it is the one you go quiet under. If I asked what you are keeping that portion for, you would not have a fast answer for me at all. Say it out loud if you can. What is the reserve waiting for? You would start to answer, and then you would notice something. You would open your mouth and find nothing behind the question. Not one reason you could say out loud. Only the holding itself, which you have never had to justify to anyone, including you. You have simply been keeping it. The keeping became the point. Somewhere the reserve stopped being a means and turned into a habit that runs on its own, like a light left burning in a room nobody enters, and you are still tending that light. Every hour, underneath everything else you're doing. I want you to sit with the strangeness of that. A part of you is being preserved for an occasion that has never been named. Not for anything you could point at and name, just kept. Ask yourself, in the plainest voice you have, whether anything in your life has ever gotten better because that 10th stayed home. Take your time with that one. I have all of it. Watch yourself the next time you try to explain the reserve, even to me. You will reach first for a rainy day. Everybody reaches for that one. It sounds finished, like a plan with an actual shape to it. But stop there a second and ask what day you mean, not a season. A day. You cannot name one. You have not set a date on which the 10th part gets to come out and be spent. There's no morning circled on anything you own, where the holding ends and the giving starts. A rainy day that never arrives is not a plan. It is a way of avoiding any real test of the reserve at all. Try the next one, in case it happens again. That one feels sturdier because something did happen once, and you are not making it up. But look closely at what you are actually claiming. You are saying the 10th part, kept back and untouched for years, would somehow stand between you and the next hard thing. Ask yourself plainly whether that has ever once been true. The hard things that came after the first one did not check what you had in reserve before they arrived. They came anyway. And when they came, the 10th part sat exactly where it always sits, unused, unspent, doing nothing for you at all. It did not soften one blow. It did not shorten one night. All it did was stay hidden while the actual hard thing happened to the 9 parts you were still living with. Here is the third one, and it is the one you keep closest, because it sounds the least selfish. In case love runs dry, you are saving a piece of yourself, so that if the well goes empty, there is still something left to give. Stay with that, because it is the cruelest of the 3, and you have not looked straight at why. Notice what it assumes. It assumes love is a fixed amount, poured out of you like water from a jar, and the jar has a bottom. But you were never a jar. Nothing you have ever given away that was true has come back to you emptier. You have come back tired. You have come back disappointed. You have not once come back with less love in you than before you gave it. The well does not run dry from being used. It only ever ran dry from being sealed shut. So look at the 3 of them together. A day that was never set. A danger that never once checked your reserve before finding you anyway. A well that was not actually at risk of running out. None of them hold up. None of them were built to. You did not build the reserve from a plan. You built the plan afterward, quietly, to explain a habit you could not stop and did not want to look at too closely. Hear this part plainly, because it is the whole point of stopping here today. The reserve was never protecting you against a future. It has been running so long that it started inventing futures just to justify itself. Let me give the room a name, since you never have. It is a barn. You did not build it out of wood, and it does not stand anywhere a person could walk to, but it works the way barns work. Things go in. Things do not come out. The doors stay shut against a season that has not arrived. Come inside it with me and look at what is actually stacked there. Half of it is sentences. You are a person of half sentences, and you have gotten so fluent at it that the cut no longer feels like cutting. You write the whole message. Every word of it is honest. Then you go back through and take out the true part, the one that would have shown how much it mattered, and you send the polite remainder. The remainder gets a kind reply. The reply is for a message you did not send. There is a thank you in that barn you never gave properly. You made it casual on purpose. Casual costs nothing if it is not returned. There is a name you almost said out loud when you prayed, and you traded it at the last second for a general request that could not embarrass you if it went unanswered. There is an apology in there, fully written, delivered at half strength. There is a moment when someone asked how you were, and you had the real sentence loaded and ready in your mouth, and you let it go and said the word, "Everybody says." None of that was cowardice. Understand me. Every one of those was a small act of protection, done quickly by someone who has been hurt in exactly that place before. But look at the pile. Now look at what else is stored in there, underneath the sentences. Affection you decided not to show at full size, because showing it would tell the other person how much power they had. Honesty you set aside for a better moment. And the better moment has a way of never being scheduled. Wanting. A great deal of wanting. Kept low, kept quiet, kept at a volume where nobody could hear it and use it later. And hope. More hope than you would admit to owning. You put it in the dark on purpose because hope carried out in the open can be seen, and anything that can be seen can be taken away from you. Here is what I need you to notice about all of it. Nothing in that barn kept. Grain does not sit in the dark and stay grain. It goes soft. It draws things that live in the dark. You open the door 6 months later expecting the harvest you put in, and what is there has changed into something you would not choose to eat. Your reserve did the same, and you have not once opened the door to check. Affection stored does not stay affection. It turns slowly into a grudge with very good manners. Honesty stored does not stay honesty. It hardens into distance, and the distance grows a reason, and the reason sounds so sensible that you can say it out loud without wincing. Wanting stored does not stay wanting. It goes flat. That is why so many things you used to hunger for have stopped calling you at all, and you have been reading that flatness as maturity. And hope stored in the dark stops being hope. It becomes a plan for how you will handle it when the thing does not happen. You still have all of it, every last bit. Nothing was lost. It simply never lived. That is the quiet loss you have never named, and it is the whole reason I am talking to you. The part you save never gets to live, not spoiled by anyone else, not stolen, not taken by the enemy or the season or the person you still blame a little. Just kept and kept and kept until keeping was all that ever happened to it. The field outside your window has none of this. Not one wildflower is holding a spare petal for a colder week. And I have never yet seen one of them go hungry. There is an old line about this, and you have heard it so often that it has gone smooth in your hands. People hand it to worried people the way you hand a blanket to somebody shivering. Do not worry. Look at the birds. Slow down with me on it. Read it as if it were new, because you have never really read the middle of it. Matthew chapter 6, verse 26. Here it is, word for word, exactly as it was written down and kept. Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns. Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Now take it apart with me slowly, one piece at a time. They sow not. They do not reap. That is where nearly everyone stops, and stopping there produces a lie. It sounds like the bird does nothing. It sounds like the message is rest, be still, let go, and the shivering person nods and goes home no different. But you have watched a bird. Anyone who has ever stood at a window has watched one. That creature is not resting. It is up before the light. It works the whole arc of the day with an intensity that would exhaust you inside an hour. It gathers, it carries, it builds, it feeds, it goes back out, it does it again. Nobody who has honestly watched one would ever call it idle. So sowing and reaping cannot mean labor. Those are farm words. They are the shape of a certain kind of work, the kind that plants in one season in order to hold something in another. Which brings you to the third piece, and the third piece is the one meant for you. Nor gather into barns. There it is. That is what is different. Not the working, the storing. The bird does everything you do. It just has no room out back. It takes the day it is given, uses the whole of it, and lies down at the end with nothing set aside, and it is not being reckless when it does that. It is simply not doing a second work that was never assigned to it. Hear the next piece before you argue with me. Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Feedeth, not fed, not will feed once at some appointed hour when the need gets serious enough to qualify. It is a word with no end on it, continuous. Happening while the bird is out working and happening while the bird is asleep, and happening in the season the bird has no idea is coming. That is the whole exchange being offered. The bird does not carry what has not arrived yet, because what has not arrived is already being carried. And then the question at the end, which I want you to take personally, because it was aimed at someone exactly like you. Are ye not much better than they? Nothing in that question is flattery. It is a comparison of what you are worth to me against what a wild bird is worth to me. And the point is not that you deserve more. The point is that you are living with less. You have given yourself a burden that a creature with a brain the size of a seed has never carried for a single hour of its life. So here is what has actually been happening in you, said as plainly as I can say it. You believed the reserve was what protected you. It is not. The reserve is the only part of you that never got to live. Everything you gave away is still working somewhere. It went out, it landed, it changed a room, it fed something, and most of it did that without ever reporting back to you. That is what given things do. And everything you held is exactly where you set it, unspoiled, unspent, untouched, in the dark, in a room nobody has opened in years, including you. You have been protecting a portion of your life from the experience of being lived. That is not caution. Caution ends when the danger does. This has no ending in it at all. Look at what the second work has actually taken. Not in theory, in hours. You have sat in rooms without ever being all the way inside them. Someone has known you for years and has met about 7 parts of you. They would say they know you well. They are not wrong about the 7. They have simply never been introduced to the rest, and they do not know a rest exists, and you have grown so smooth at the handover that even you lose track of which part is out front. You have been loved at the size you allowed. Then you felt the size of it and were quietly disappointed. And the disappointment felt like it proved something about them. Here is the turn in this that I most want you to see, because it is the cruelest part of how it all works. You look around at your life and notice that nobody really knows you. You feel it at a table with people who like you. You feel it in the pause after someone says something kind, when you understand they are being kind to aversion. You feel it worst in the moment, right after laughing, when the room has moved on and you are somehow still outside it. And you have read that feeling as a verdict on other people. They are shallow. Nobody goes deep anymore. Nobody asks a second question. But look at the order of events. The reserve makes the distance. The distance feels like proof that people cannot be trusted with you. The proof makes you keep a little more back, and the little more back widens the distance again. Around and around for years, and you have been calling it your personality. You will not break that circle by putting more effort into the 9 parts. The 9 parts were never the trouble. You could work twice as hard at being present, and it would change nothing at all, because the missing piece was never missing from your effort. It was locked in a room behind you the entire while. Stay with the cost a moment longer. You said you have been loved at the size you allowed. Sit inside that sentence. Do not walk past it. It means the love in your life has never once tested its true size. You never handed over enough of yourself for anyone to find the edge of it. You do not actually know how much you are loved. You know how much a smaller version of you is loved. You have been quietly grieving that gap your whole life. You never once named what the grief was. That is a strange kind of hunger. Fed and still hungry. Held and still alone in the holding. Think of the exact shape it takes. You have been comforted after a hard week. You felt the comfort miss. Not because it was clumsy, because it was aimed at the 7 parts they could see, and the 10th part was standing just out of frame. Uncomforted. The way it always is. You have watched someone love you well, and thought quietly, if they knew the rest, they might not. You have not once tested whether that thought was true. Testing it would mean opening the door. You decided a long time ago that the door stays shut. So the fear runs the relationship instead of you. Some of what you blame on other people may be true, but look at what you were handing them to look at. A person cannot see all the way into a room you have kept the light off in. Count the hours honestly, the way I am counting them. Every dinner where you stayed on the surface because the real thing was too near that back room. Every time you changed the subject half a second before it turned toward you. Every good night said a little too briskly, because the day had gotten close to something and you needed the door shut before sleep. None of those hours felt like much on their own. A habit rarely does, in the moment. It is only from here, added up, that you can see what the second work actually cost you. It was not time. It was nearness. Every hour of it. And there is a crueler part. Look at what it did to your read of other people. You started to believe distance was simply how people are. You started to expect the shallow version of things. Somewhere along the way, you stopped noticing something. You were the one who had built the shallow version, brick by careful brick, out of a self-protection that once made sense. It only makes you tired now. Notice one more thing while you are here, because it is the part that stings the most. The people closest to you have not once complained about receiving less than the whole of you. That is not because less was enough. It is because they have never been shown what the whole would even look like, so they have nothing to miss and nothing to ask for. They love a shape you drew for them. They are loyal to an outline. You call that consideration, sparing them the weight of you. It is not consideration. It is the same reserve, wearing a kinder name. Ask yourself the plain question, not whether they can be trusted with the whole of you, whether you have ever actually let them try. Set this down. Take 3 breaths with me before we go further. Not deep ones. Nothing to perform. 3 ordinary breaths, one after another, and I will give each one something to carry. The first breath is for the sentence you cut in half. You know which sentence. It has been sitting in your chest so long you stopped noticing the weight of it. Breathe it in. Let it out slowly. You are not saying it yet. You are only admitting it exists. The second breath is for the 10th part, the piece of your loving you have kept in your own hands where nothing could happen to it. Breathe in, and on the way out, let your grip on it loosen half of 1 degree. Not open, just less tight. The third breath goes all the way down, slower than the other 2. This one is for the door of that room, not opening it, only standing near it without walking away, which you have not done in years. Let the quiet run on past where you would normally speak. Now hear what I actually think of what you have been doing, because you have assumed for a good while now that I was disappointed in you. I am not. You have been faithful with the 9 parts. Genuinely faithful. You have shown up for people who could not have shown up for you. You have carried loads I never asked you to lift, and you did not put them down halfway. None of that was wasted, and none of it was ignored, and I have not been standing at a distance grading how much of yourself you were willing to hand over. I am not after the 10th because I need it. I am after the 10th because it is the only part of you that has not been alive. So I am going to ask you for something now. It arrives in 3 motions, and the first is far smaller than whatever you are bracing for. The first motion is only this: admit what you keep. Not to a room, not to anyone who could use it, to me and to yourself, which is the harder of the two, and do not begin with the biggest thing in there. You would fail at that, and then you would decide the failure was about your character, and we would be back where we started with one more piece of proof against you. Begin with the one that already came to mind. It came while I was describing the room. You know it did. It surfaced and you pushed it under twice, and both times you told yourself we were talking about something else. That one. Take that one. Now name it in ordinary words. This is where you will try to escape, and I want to catch you at the exact spot. You will reach for the smooth phrase. You will think something like, I have trouble being vulnerable. I keep people at arm's length. I am a private person. Those are true sentences, and they are made of insulation. Nobody has ever been changed by describing themselves in the language of a leaflet. That vocabulary exists, so a thing can be mentioned without being felt. Say the real one instead. The real one has one person in it, or one want, or one fear with a face on it. I have never told him that it mattered. I have wanted this for 4 years, and I have still not said the word out loud, not even alone. I am afraid that if I let her see how much I need her, she will start deciding how much of it to give me. I have been ready to leave since the beginning, and I have never told anyone that I keep a bag packed inside myself. I do not know how to be glad about anything without immediately preparing for it to end. Whatever yours is, it sounds like that. Bare, exact, slightly humiliating to say in daylight. That is how you know you have found the real one and not the ornamental version. So let me ask it, and you can keep your mouth closed if you need to. Whose face is in your sentence? You are not going to answer that out loud. I know. You have carried that name a long time without ever handing it to anyone, and you are not about to start with me watching. So I will not make you say the name. I will say what I see instead. There is one person. The sentence has been finished in your head 100 times and has not once been finished out where they could hear it. You have said it walking. You have said it lying down with the light off. You have said it to everyone except them. That is the one. Not the tidy one you would have picked if I had let you choose. Say it. Under your breath if that is all you have. Say it flat, the way you would read a line off a page, because it is not a sin, and I am not receiving it as one. I am receiving it as a person finally telling me what is in the room. Now notice what your body does in the 4 seconds after. There will be a flinch, a tightening somewhere across the front of you, something in you scanning fast for what comes next, because you have said the unsaid thing and now it is loose in the air. Watch what actually happens next. Nothing. No one enters. Nothing is taken from you. The thing you named is still yours. You are on your feet. I have not moved 1 step from where I was. That is the whole of the first motion, and it is worth more than it looks. You are not emptying the barn. You have opened the door the width of 1 hand, and said out loud what is stacked nearest the front. The reason this is first is simple. You cannot hand over what you have never admitted you are holding. A thing with no name cannot be given away. It can only be guarded. And you have been guarding this one so long that the guarding stopped feeling like an action. It feels like your temperament. It feels like the way you were made. It is not how you were made. It is a choice made once by someone younger than you and far more frightened, who has never been relieved of the post. You are allowed to relieve them, not everything, not all at once. Just this one thing named, out loud, and set down where I can see it. Here is the second motion, and it is where the room actually opens. Take the half sentence and say the whole of it, one time, to the person it belongs to, if that person is reachable. To me, if they are not. To me, if they are gone. To me, if the whole of it would land on someone who has no way to carry it. Once. That is the entire instruction. I am not asking you to become an open person. This is not a new way of living that you would have to keep up and eventually fail at. One sentence, said all the way to its end, one time. You already know which one it is. It has not changed since I named it. Now hear how you will try to take it back. Because you will. You will do it in the last half second. It will feel like courtesy. You will say the true thing. And then, before the air has closed behind it, you will attach something to the end. But it is fine either way. No pressure, obviously. I'm probably overthinking this. Do not worry about it. It is not a big deal. You have a whole drawer of them, worn smooth from years of reaching in the same half second every time. That clause is not politeness. It is the barn door swinging shut. It is your hand reaching out and pulling the sentence back inside before anyone can do anything with it. And it works. That is exactly why you keep doing it. Watch what it does to the other person. It hands them the true thing. Then it quietly informs them that no response is needed. It tells them they do not have to receive it. You have been ending your most honest sentences with an instruction to disregard them. That is the tell. You are not protecting them from the weight of it. You are protecting yourself from watching what they do with it. Sit with that difference, because you have told yourself the opposite story for years. You have called the softener kindness, a way of not burdening people with the full size of what you carry. It is a generous story, and it is not a true one. A person who was only being kind would still let the sentence stand and simply wait to see what came back. You do not wait. You reach in immediately and take the weight off the other person's hands before they have even lifted it, and you call the taking a gift. It was never a gift to them. It was relief for you. Here is the part underneath the reflex, and it goes back to where we started. Somewhere back at that door you sealed without a key, you learned that a whole thing handed over could come back wrong, or not come back at all. The softener is the oldest trick you have for managing that risk. Say it. Then immediately make it small enough that its failure would not really count as a failure. If it is not received well, you can tell yourself, it was never really that important. You built yourself an exit before you ever needed one. The exit has a cost. You have been carrying it for years without once looking at it. Every time you use it, the other person receives a sentence that is already halfway pulled back. They cannot fully catch what you are already retracting, so they answer the size you gave them, the smaller size. And you read their smaller answer as proof that the whole truth would not have landed either. Round and round. The softener manufactures the very proof it uses to defend itself, not proof of anything real. A story that keeps confirming itself because it was not once tested at its full size. Think about what years of the softener have actually taught the people around you. They have learned without you ever saying it plainly that your honest sentences come with a warning label. Handle carefully or not at all. Some of them have started softening their own words back at you, matching your rhythm, because that is what a person does when the one across from them keeps flinching at the size of things. You did not just protect yourself. You quietly trained the room. That can be untrained, not with a speech about it. With one sentence left standing, this once, Here is the part that will surprise you if you actually try it. The people closest to you are not waiting to punish you for finally saying a whole thing. Most of them have been waiting years for exactly that sentence, wondering why you kept handing them the smaller version when they could tell, every time, that there was more behind it. They were not fooled by the softener. They were only being polite about noticing it. So the second motion is one sentence with nothing attached to the end of it. Say it, then be quiet. Let the silence afterward be as long as it wants to be. Those are the most uncomfortable 4 seconds available to a person like you. They are also the exact place where a kept thing turns into a given one. Do not explain why you are saying it. Explaining is another shape of the same retreat. Do not stack 3 softer sentences on top of it to bring the temperature back down. Just the sentence, then the quiet. Now I'm going to be honest about what happens next. I would rather you hear it from me than discover it and decide I misled you. I am not promising you it will be received well. Some of what you say whole will land in someone who cannot hold it. They will look at you strangely. They will change the subject a half beat too fast. They will say something adequate and small, and you will walk away with your face hot. See, you will think, that is exactly why I keep it in the room. That may happen. It may happen the very first time. Here is what is true even then. For the length of time it took to say it, that part of you was out in the open and alive. It was not stored. It was not being held for an occasion that never comes. It existed, in the air, in a moment that actually happened. Nobody's poor catch reaches back and undoes that. You cannot control what is done with what you give. That piece was never assigned to you. What you decide is whether any of it leaves the room at all. And there is one more thing you have not considered. Consider it now. You have never tested this. Not once. Not properly. Not without the softener fastened to the end of it. Every conclusion you carry about what happens when a person gives the whole of something is built out of one old memory and a great many rehearsals. That is not proof. It is a story you told yourself in the dark and have believed ever since without checking. The third motion is the one nobody warns you about, and it is where almost everyone loses what they just gained. After you give it, do not go back and pick it up. That sounds obvious. It is not. You are extremely skilled at retrieval, and you do it in ways that do not look like retrieval at all. Here is how it happens. You say the whole sentence. Good. Then the hours after begin, and you replay the moment 11 times looking for the sign that it landed. You inspect their face from memory. You slow the recording down. You examine one syllable of their reply for proof of how much of it they actually took. Do not call that reflection. You are going back out into the field at night to see if the seed is still where you put it, or it goes another way. The next time you are with them, you are quieter, 2 degrees more careful. Nothing anybody could name. You are quietly restoring yourself to the level you sat at before, bringing the reserve back up. Nobody would ever call it that, or you make a joke about it later, a small one. It lets you both agree that the honest moment was a little embarrassing, and just like that, the sentence is back in the room with the door shut behind it. Or, quietest of all, you decide privately that it did not count. You had a strange week. You were tired. It was not really you talking. That is the reserve rebuilding itself, and it will do that on its own, without instruction, the way water finds a level. So the third motion is stillness. You gave it. Now leave it where it landed. Before you move to the next line, stay exactly where you are. Stay still. Do not go anywhere with this yet. Notice the pull. It is there. Something in you is already reaching for the thing I just described, wanting to gather it back in, wanting to make it safe again by putting it away. Feel that reaching without following it. Just once. Let your hands stay where they are. That is all the practice you need. Everything else about this is theory. Now let your attention come back and hear the reason this is possible at all. You have been running a room in the dark because you believed nothing else was holding your life. Something else is. What you give away is not gone. It is kept, not stored the way you store it, in a locked place where nothing can reach it and nothing can live. Kept, which is a whole different thing. The way a field is kept through a winter, it did not have to survive alone. I have been keeping the parts of you that you handed over long before you noticed you had handed them over. Every honest thing you ever said that nobody answered. Every piece of love you gave to someone who could not hold it. Every hour you showed up for something that never thanked you. You thought those were losses. You took them as the reason to keep the 10th in the dark. None of them were lost. They came to me. I have all of it. Not one thing that left your hands has ever been misplaced. That is why you do not need the barn. Not because the world is safe. I am not going to tell you the world is safe. And I will not tell you the hard season you are standing in is about to end, because I do not make that kind of promise, and you would know it was hollow. You do not need the barn, because the keeping was never your work. You have been doing my work with your own hands, in your own dark, on a portion of yourself that was never in danger of being lost. Set it down, not because it is easy, because that work was never yours to do. Picture an ordinary stretch of your life once the second work stops running. Not a transformed life. The same one, with one job removed from it. You say something true at a kitchen table, and then you butter your bread. That is all. No review afterward. No slow replay in the car about how it landed. You laugh at the volume the thing was actually funny at. You let yourself want something in front of another person, out loud, in a full sentence, with no protective shrug attached to the end of it. You reach the end of a long day emptied out, and instead of the old alarm going off in your chest, there is only tiredness. Ordinary tiredness, the kind that sleeps. And you notice something strange in the middle of all that. You're not more anxious with less held back. You are calmer. That surprises everyone. It should not, but it does. The reserve was never producing safety. It was producing vigilance. A guarded thing has to be checked. And a thing that has to be checked will wake you in the dark to be checked again. Give it away and nothing is left to guard. There is only the day, and me, and whatever is in front of you. Keep picturing it. You pray. And this time you ask for the actual thing. Not the smaller, safer version you have been offering me for years to protect yourself from a no. The real want, spoken plainly. The whole shape of it, sitting between us with nothing shaved off the edges. That is new. Feel how new it is. You receive a kind word and you let it land instead of deflecting it into the floor. Someone tells you that you did something well. You say, "Thank you." You stop there. You do not immediately explain why it was not really that good, or list 3 ways it could have gone better, or hand the moment back to them smaller than they gave it to you. You let it be yours, just long enough to say 2 words. You let someone help you carry something heavy, and you do not narrate how you could have managed it alone. You do not add the line that makes your need smaller than it is. You just let the weight be shared, the whole of it, for as long as the help lasts. That one is harder than it sounds. Try it and see. You grieve something out loud in front of someone without narrating your own composure while you do it. No half smile stitched onto the sentence to prove you are handling it well. Just the grief, at its actual size, taking up the actual room it needs. Nobody in the room dies from witnessing it. You disagree with someone you love. You say the disagreement whole, instead of managing it down into something smaller and safer that will not risk the relationship. And the relationship, to your surprise, does not fall apart under the weight of an honest sentence. It was never that fragile. You were the one treating it like glass. None of this is dramatic. Notice that. A life with the second work stopped does not look like a different life from the outside. It looks like the same ordinary hours, the same table, the same people. What changes is invisible to everyone but you, and it changes everything. Stop on one of those 5. You already know which one. Let me ask it plainly. Which of them made something in you go tight? Not which one sounded nicest. Which one did you have to look away from? You would not answer me fast. You would walk back through the 5, and you would find the one you moved past quickest, because moving past a thing quickly is how you handle the ones that are true. Then you would say it. It would come out short. That one. I would not survive that one. Hear what sits underneath that sentence. You have just told me where the 10th part has been standing all this while, and you said it in one breath without meaning to. So we are not talking about 5 things now. We are talking about one. And you are the one who found it. Take that one. Keep it where you can see it. Now go back to the vigilance. Look at it closely with me. A guarded thing is a thing you cannot stop checking. Think of what that has actually meant for you, hour by hour, for years. You have checked the reserve the way a hand keeps returning to a sore tooth. Not because checking helps, because the checking itself became the habit, long after the reason for it was worth the cost. You check it in silence. When a room goes quiet and you feel the old pull to fill the space with something smaller than the truth, you check it in conflict. When the fastest way out of an argument is to hand over less of yourself instead of more. You check it at night, running the inventory of everything you did not say that day, confirming it is all still sealed where you left it. That is not rest. You have never once called it rest if you are honest, because you know the difference between sleep and standing guard. A guard does not lie down the way a person off duty lies down. Even flat on his back, some part of him stays upright, listening past the dark for the thing he is sure is coming. You have slept that way for years, half down, one ear on the door of a room nothing has ever actually broken into. Here is what nobody has told you about vigilance. It does not scale down. A watchman does not watch less as the years pass and nothing happens. He watches more. Because nothing happening starts to feel like proof the watching is working. And the one thing a watchman will never test is what happens if he stops. You have been that watchman over a field with nothing dangerous in it. One king understood storage better than anyone alive. His storehouses were famous across the world. Rulers traveled a long way just to walk through what he had assembled, and the reports of it say that when one of them saw it all laid out, the food on his table, the order of his servants, the way every piece of it fit, there was no more spirit left in her. What undid her was the meal. The meat of his table, course after course, more than any single house could need, prepared and carried and set down by people whose whole occupation was making sure nothing about the evening looked like effort. Then, the sitting of his servants. Not scattered, not improvised. An entire order to where each person stood and moved, built and rehearsed until it looked like nothing had ever been built at all, not because any single piece impressed her, because the whole of it, taken together, was a portrait of a life with nothing left uncontrolled, nothing left unprovided, nothing left to chance or hunger or lack. She was looking at the far edge of what a human being can gather, guard, and arrange. She had nothing left standing in her to meet it with. The man at the center of it did not get one relaxed meal, not one evening where he simply sat and let the room be what it was without checking it. Every servant in position was a decision he had made and then had to keep remaking, because order like that does not hold itself. It has to be reordered quietly every single day by someone whose attention never fully leaves it. He gathered more than any king before him, and the gathering itself became a second throne he could never step down from. You have built a smaller version of the very same hall. Smaller rooms, smaller order, the same principle running underneath it. Keep it arranged, keep it guarded, keep nothing to chance, and call the exhaustion of not once stepping down from the watching by the name of wisdom. That is the height of gathering. Nobody has ever done it better. And in the same book where you and I have been standing, in the sentences right after the ones about the birds, the field gets brought up. Look at the wildflowers, it says. They do not labor at a loom. They spin nothing. And that king, in the fullest glory he ever wore, was not dressed like one of them. Sit with that comparison, because it is not sentimental. It is a measurement. Everything he wore had to be assembled, guarded, watched, and defended. Everything the flower wore was given, and asked nothing of it, and outshone him. He had more. The flower was better dressed. And no one ever wrote down what the keeping took out of him, though I watched it and I could tell you. You will not outstore that king. You were never going to. You have a small back room and a 10th part of your own heart in it, and you have been guarding it with the seriousness of a watchman on a wall. Put down the guarding and see what you are wearing. Now hear the honest part, so you can trust the rest of it. The hard thing you are standing in may not move. I have not said it would. Some of what is pressing on you will still be pressing on you after this message ends, and I will not insult you by pretending otherwise. What changes is that you will be standing in it whole. That is not a small trade. Go through a hard season, holding a 10th of yourself in reserve, and you go through it alone, even in a room full of people who love you. Go through the same season with all of you present, and it is still hard, and you are not alone in it. And something in you that has been asleep for years wakes up and stays awake. You have been rationing yourself against a famine that never came. And on the other side of that habit is not recklessness. It is not a person who gives everything away and ends up with nothing. It is a person who is finally all the way here. One more question, and then I will let you go back into your life. What are you keeping it for? You have been carrying that one since I first put it in front of you, and you have turned it over, and you still do not have an answer. Let me tell you why. There is no answer. Not because you are foolish, because there was never an occasion. No day was ever chosen. No person was ever named. The reserve has been waiting on nothing at all. So say the true thing back to me. Say it exactly as it is. I do not know. That is what you would say if you stopped arranging it first, and it is the most honest sentence you have handed me in a very long stretch of years. I will take it. Gladly. A better answer than the honest one is not needed here. I am not asking you to understand this before you do anything about it. Understanding was never what I asked from you first. I do not know is already a latch coming loose. Something that has been held shut for years has moved half an inch, and you did that by admitting you have no reason left for holding it. Here is everything I have asked of you, small enough to carry out of this without notes. Name one thing you have been keeping. Say it whole, one time, with nothing fastened to the end of it. Then leave it where it lands and do not go back in the dark to gather it home. That is all. Not a personality change. Not a life of reckless honesty you would have to sustain and eventually abandon. One thing. One sentence. One refusal to retrieve. You are already forming the other question. I can hear it. What happens if I do it and it goes badly? I will answer you, and the answer will not satisfy the part of you that wants a guarantee first. If it goes badly, you will be someone who gave a whole thing and watched it fall. That is a real grief. I will not talk you out of it, and I will not pretend I can arrange the world so it never happens to you. But you will not be the other thing. You will not be someone who guarded a room for a lifetime and came to the end and opened it at last and found everything sitting exactly where it was set down. Untouched, unused, no good to anyone anymore, including you. And when you have done it, you will feel oddly bare for a while, and something in you will call that danger. It is not danger. It is the feeling of a portion of your life being in the world instead of in a locked room, and you have simply been out of practice at it since you were young. The field will still be out there. Nothing in it has anything set aside. No wildflower out there is keeping a petal back against a colder week, and not one of them has spent a single second of its life thinking about the season after this one. And they are dressed better than every king who ever counted what he owned. They are fed without stopping, in the middle of storms that nobody promised would pass. You are worth more to me than a field of them, and I have been feeding you all the while you believed you were surviving on the 10th part you kept in your own hands. Take it out of the dark. The part you save never gets to live. So live it, all of it, out where it can be received badly and misunderstood and not returned, because that is the only place anything has ever been alive. I will hold what you let go of. That has always been my work, and I have never lost one thing that was handed to me, and I am not going to start with yours. Amen. There is another of these already on its way to you. The same voice, the same quiet, one more piece of what got started here. Nothing about it depends on you remembering. Subscribing only keeps the path between here and there marked, so the next one reaches you instead of the other way around. Nothing else is asked of you. Come back when it arrives.